Hello everyone and welcome to another video. I am G from Simply G and going to be talking about all of the manga, light novels, comics, books, whatever else that I got for this month, the last month in 2021. What a year, huh? But lots of stuff to get through, way more than I expected, to be perfectly honest. So rather than spend too long on this intro, I'm going to get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first, we have some merchandise that I got for this month, and I actually got technically three figures. The first one being the most recent Nendoroid from this series, and that is Kita from Haikyuu. It's so cute. Once again, I love all of the characters from Haikyuu, and every time there's an android, well, not every time, because there's, school uniform versions and sports uniform or uniform versions and like other types that I don't get, but they're more standard, like volleyball uniform stuff I typically do get. Kita is a character from the Zaki. Oh my gosh, it's so forgetful. The same team that the twins are from. They're pretty prominent characters, and Kita is a very prominent character throughout the later part of the series. Very, 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 very good. And he comes with a little bag with a note on it, which is from the manga. And considering that both of the twins are being displayed with food, I decided to display Kita with his little bag of snacks. Yeah, happy to have him. Next is another figure. It's sort of a 2-in-1 because it is a pair figure. You can buy them, I think one of them separately, maybe both of them separately, but I bought them together. And this is I think this is a Mega House release of Roy and Riza from Fullmetal Alchemist. So just continuing my Fullmetal Alchemist figure collection. I already have Ed and I have like chibi versions of the main characters, but these are the first scales that I've had of the main characters. And when I saw that they were releasing Roy and Riza together, I decided to get this one compared to all of the Just Roy figures, because I love Riza and their team, and you can't separate them. That's just incorrect. You're committing a crime if you try to. I'm also getting the Greedling from this series, these releases. So it's just been quite a little bit of a renaissance for Full Metal figures, thanks to various anniversaries that have come up recently. So as a long-time Full Metal fan, this was kind of a no-brainer. The real issue is trying to figure out where the hell I'm going to put these, but we'll figure something out. I always do. I have no debuts or one-shots for general manga. I do have for BL, but not for kind of more mainstream manga. But I do have a recent finale of a series, one that I really enjoy, was really sweet, short, sweet, to the point, very cute, heartwarming. It's within a genre that I think a lot of people enjoy. And this is an all ages manga, so it's super easy to recommend to people, especially if you have young people in your life who you're wanting or who are asking for manga recommendations. But this is Nicola Traveling Around the Demon's World, Volume 4 by Asayam Miyanaga. This is the story of a small young girl called Nicola who, as the title suggests, has been traveling around the demon's world with a demon, like a traveling salesman demon that she met kind of early on when she arrived, who has been taking her around. His name's Simon, and it's about their travels together, their friendship. She's looking for her mother, who's been missing in the demon's world for the last several years. And so it's her trying to look for her mother and discovering about this really interesting, amazing, magical demon world. It's really, really sweet, really lovely. I've mentioned this before with the series, but it's actually printed, you can't necessarily tell in the video, but it's printed in brown tones versus like black and white, which leaves it, or gives it the sort of more fairy tale feel, I think. It's just really sweet, really cute, really heartwarming at the end of it, and I just really enjoyed it. I'm not really a big fan of a lot of these series necessarily wherein like a adult man, a gruff, unsociable type has to discovers a small young girl and has to help her. Lone Wolf and Cub, and even stuff like Somali in the forest, or whatever it is. I can't remember the name. There's a lot of them. I get a bit cynical sometimes. First of all, Simon isn't nearly as like cool. He's not a warrior. He's just a traveling merchant. He kind of reminds me a little bit more of like a Spice and Wolf setup. Obviously not a romance, but wherein like this world weary young salesman, he just gets caught up in trying to help someone, and much to the detriment sometimes to himself, but ultimately grows very fond of this girl he's helping. Not romantically, just more paternally maybe. It's really sweet, really lovely, and at only 4 volumes, it's a good length. It's exactly the sort of length that you need for this sort of story, I feel. That out of the way, I think I'll just continue with ongoing manga. So I'll start with some more 7C stuff. We have the 3rd and most recent volume of Dai Dark by Kyu Hayashira. This is the story of a 14-year-old boy called Sanko, who is there's a rumor that his bones will grant you any wish that you would want. So if you have them, you could become like ruler of the universe. And for some reason, I don't know, I don't think it's been revealed yet. I admittedly haven't read this book yet, but I don't think that it's been explained yet. But because of that, obviously he's constantly trying to escape danger. He has so if you're not familiar with Kyu Hayashira, this is the creator of Dorohedoro. This is a very similar vibe. Lots of violence, lots of like gore, and spines being ripped out and people being turned to goo and all sorts of things. But also like a really strong community, family and friends, and it's really sweet actually. So whereas Dorohedoro was set in like this dark sorcery universe, this is set in kind of like a how do I necromancy sci-fi. It's set in space, but there's a lot of like dark fantasy necromancy stuff going on as well. It's great. It's a wild ride. I'm a big fan of Kyu Hayashira, and I would recommend you check her stuff out just generally. This has been a really solid start to a highly anticipated series for me, and I just always really enjoy whenever I get a new volume of this. Have the third volume of Kagaki Shoujo by Kumikosaki, another 7 Seas release. This is a currently ongoing manga in Japan about what do they call it? The Koka School of Musical and Theatrical Arts. Basically, it's a manga about the Takurazuka women's theater troupe, which is a very prominent kind of art in Japan. It's very popular. For those who don't know, they do stage plays, musicals, all sorts of things with entirely female troupes. And there's it's a very rigorous training. It's incredibly competitive. It's incredibly hard to be admitted. You go through several years of training with a bunch of other girls, and ultimately you end up on one of I think there's 5 main troupes plus an additional 6th one. The only reason I know half of this is because of my good friend Ray, Whimsical Pictures, who I co-host the podcast with. This was one of her favorite picks for the year because she is really into otakoyaku, most specifically, so the women who play men's roles. But yeah, so she's kind of been introducing myself and a couple of our other friends to Takurazuka, and it's been a really fun time. But majority of my knowledge of the culture, of the sort of social structure, of the what it takes to join is from her explaining. But we follow our main character, Sorata, who has joined because she's just always kind of had dreams of the stage, and she really wants to play Lady Oscar, which is only ever given to like the top otakuyaku, so you have to be the top star of the troupe. So she's really aiming high, but she's quite she stands out a lot. She doesn't have a lot of formal she's not like the most fabulous actress or singer or anything, and she's incredibly tall, so she really sticks out. But she has a background, some of her family friends or neighbors maybe are in kabuki, so she has kind of, although not family history, she does have quite a close ties with the stage. It's really fun, really funny, sweet. There's a bunch of other girls as well, notably an ex-idol who has kind of joined or started to pursue this after she's had several issues with her kind of idol career and several abuses through that. It's really good, even if you're not a fan of like what this is all about. Like, if you've never seen a Takurazuka show, I think it's still one you can enjoy. This is another one that has an anime that just came out recently, which I haven't seen, although it does seem that it was pretty positively received, so maybe more people are aware of it than I am. But yeah, really happy to see more of this. So there's 3 volumes of this version, plus there's a big chunky omnibus version called The Curtain Rises, or Kageki Shoujo, the Curtain Rises, which is a prequel / this version is kind of a soft reboot, so you do kind of need to read that one. I don't know whether it's just because it changed magazines or what was going on, but yeah, it's an interesting one to dive into and got a bunch of really great characters. I recommend it. For kind of normal, small trim size manga, ongoing manga, we have one Yen Press volume, and that is volume 11 of one of my favorite ongoing series, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun by Aida Iro. This is really, really wonderful. I adore this series. Very up my alley. It is the story of a teenage girl who, after kind of accidentally, well, she purposefully summons Hanako-kun, Hanako-san, which is a pretty typical urban legend in Japan of a little girl, a ghost of a little girl who lives in like a girl's bathroom stall. Typically, it's very, by the numbers urban legend that school kids always talk about. But she summons Hanako-san at her school, but discovers that Hanako-san, the ghost Hanako, is actually a boy in her school, and so through a series of events, she ends up kind of becoming the human helper of Hanako-kun, who is kind of the guardian of all of the school mysteries at the school that she attends, and they become friends. And there's kind of a mystery. Some of the urban legends and things in the area are getting out of hand, and he's trying to figure out why that's happening. There's a larger mystery. There's a different, like a separate faction of people who are trying to cause these issues, cause more chaos within the supernatural world. And some of those members may have closer ties to Hanako-kun than expected. We're very far past that point. But this series is just fantastic. The last several volumes I caught up with this digitally because volume 9 or 10 just made, I had to read it. We're getting more and more answers or things being addressed, obviously, which is what you want over the course of a series. But with enough for you to still wonder what's going to happen. It's always so intriguing and quite tense. There's a lot of mystery as to how things will turn out. I want these I always was it volume 9 or 10. It introduced another issue with one of the supernatural mysteries of the school. And wow, I got attacked right in the heart. I was very emotionally unstable. Maybe it was volume 8. I don't even remember. But man, oh man, was it good. And then I literally couldn't wait. And then I bought all of the rest of the volumes that are available at the time, which was up to 15, and read them all and cried. It's not finished yet, but oh my goodness. Talk about Hanako-kun. I've said this before in regards to the series. Don't let the title put you off. It's fun, it's silly, goofy. It's got a great sense of. It is kind of a comedy, comedy mystery maybe. But oh man, like with any good yokai supernatural story, anything with kind of a supernatural twist, it has that underlying tension of kind of the differences between mortal humans and those outside of the mundane world. It's so good, and I feel like I'm gonna be heartbroken by the end of it, which is a good sign. I'm not complaining, but definitely try it out. If you don't want to check out the manga, then do check out the anime. It's streaming on I think it's streaming on Crunchyroll. I don't know. I watched it on Anime Lab, which is now Funimation. It's definitely on Funimation. But yeah, very, 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 very good. And I love the art style as well, just by the way. We have another ongoing supernatural series. This one's from Kodansha. This is another one of my favorites, although I haven't read the last couple volumes just because I'm building up kind of a backlog so I can just binge them all at once. But oh man, from what I remember of the last stuff that I've read, there's lots to look forward to. But this is volume 23 of Noragami by Adachi Toka. This is the story of Yato, who is kind of a jack of all trades god who is working hard to earn money for his own shrine. One day he is seen by just kind of a normal teenage girl who pushes him out of the way of a bus, not realizing that he's not human. And in doing so, she is hit by the bus. Her soul slips out, and she kind of becomes aware of this, the supernatural world that lives on top of the mundane world, with Yato and with Yukine, his partner weapon, and our main character. The three of them are a trio, and so it's kind of the day-to-day. There's a lot going on. There's a mysterious crafter who's causing all sorts of issues with the gods, and meanwhile, many of these blessed vessels or weapons, items are like, there's mysteries surrounding that. There's always so much good stuff in Noragami. I love this series so much. It's one that got quite popular thanks to the anime from several years ago. The first season was good, second season was even better. Manga even more better because there's just more of it. But it went on hiatus for quite a long time. It was so popular initially that Kodansha was putting out a volume like every single month until we caught up, and then it went on hiatus for a long time. I want to say maybe close to a year, maybe longer. So it was a long time between volumes. Like, I don't know what it was, maybe 14 and 15, something along those lines. And man, it was hard to wait, which we all had to do anyway, because even in Japan it was on hiatus. So, but it came back better than ever. It's still fabulous, fantastic. I although I haven't been reading these last couple of volumes, I always buy them when they come out because it's one that just has continued to be fantastic, one that I adore. I love all the characters. Again, I really like the kind of main premise, the main conflict. I like all of the different characters and their relationships with each other. There's a lot of nuance in this manga, which for something that is very like action focused and comedy, it is like a drama, but with such a comedic lilt, with something that does have such a high action percentage. It's very intelligently written. Everything really interweaves with everything, so there's no real clear arcs necessarily. Maybe there are, but everything within that each part feeds directly into the next part, which I think is really well done, feels really organic. Noragami's fabulous. I cannot recommend it enough. I don't know if I showed off the art, but it's beautiful as well. Just, this is another one that I feel like when I read more, I'm just gonna cry, because I'm just so invested in these characters and all sorts of things that, sorry, I saw a funny panel in there and couldn't help but laugh. But there's so much enjoyable, and you care about you're invested so much in the characters that when bad things happen, or when you feel like when their emotions are high, your emotions are high. That's called empathy, damn it. But it's also called good writing, and Noragami has always just been fantastic. I kind of dread reading this current arc because I don't know how things are going to turn out, and I just want everyone to be okay. But anyway, go read Noragami or watch Noragami. Either way, either option is good, and I actually encourage you to do both options. But yeah, happy to have volume 23. To some Viz stuff, we have volume 16 of Snow White with the Red Hair by Sorata Akidoki. Ooh my gosh, that was a very graceful fall, I must say. I mean, I've described Snow White with the Red Hair every single time I have a volume, which is literally every 2 months. This is a romance? Romance story about a girl who, after escaping her home country, becomes a court herbalist after befriending and falling for the second prince of the neighboring country, and he the same. But it's more than that. It is not just about their romance with each other, and maybe with others, because honestly, I've said it before with Snow White with the Red Hair, this is not only has such a poly agenda. Everyone's bisexual. There's at least one throuple in this. I refuse to believe otherwise, which includes our main characters. And I love it. It's so good. I really appreciate the series because both Shiroyuki and Zen, our main characters, are very focused in their goals. They have not only their interest in each other and their want to be together and all these sorts of things, but they have actual personal goals and occupational goals and things that they want to achieve. And so the last couple books, the two of them haven't been together, which equals 2 years in story, wherein they've been living apart because they've had duties elsewhere. Shiroyuki has been up in the kind of wintry areas of this country, trying to help, along with her mentor / co-worker, trying to figure out a way to utilize a glowing but toxic plant in order to create lighting that doesn't need extreme amounts of energy, but also isn't toxic to people in the area. And then Zen, now being the second in line and having to support his older brother, has a lot more political visits and a lot more overview and traveling to across the country to assess how things are going. And so while Shiroyuki and Ryo and Obi are together and have been working very hard, as well as others, and Zen and Kiki and Mitsuhide have been doing their own things, and they visited each other on occasion, but not like a huge amount. It just makes them more vibrant as individuals as well as together. the last couple volumes, as well as all of this, we've had a real focus on Kiki, who has kind of been caught up in the middle of suitor issues, unfortunately. Unfortunately for her. I'm not saying this is a bad narrative arc or a bad story plot. I think it's done really well. And hopefully it'll give a kick up the butt to certain other people in the cast. It's really good, really sweet. I always really enjoy whenever there's a new volume of this. I am just always keen to get the next volume, and I read it almost immediately and then am sad because I have to wait for the next one. But definitely check out Snow White with the Red Hair if you like romance stories that aren't completely like focused on the romance. They're focused on the people within that story. It's a royalty kind of setting. There's no magic. It's not like a fantasy, which is also maybe a plus if you're not wanting a more typical high school romance. Also, all of the characters, except for Riya, who isn't, involved in these romantic dealings, are over 18. Like, they're all late teens, early to mid-20s, which is refreshing. I mean, they don't look it, because no manga character looks their age, but, it's appreciated that we're not dealing with a bunch of 15-year-olds, maybe. Yeah, check it out. And this is ongoing still in Japan. I think there's 23, 24 volumes. So we're slowly catching up. But once we do, it's going to be sad. Because I don't like waiting. I'm very impatient, as has been well established. But yeah, check it out if it sounds interesting to you. I have a jump title. Few and far between for my collection, although I am a fan of many jump titles over the years. This is one of my favorite from the last couple of years. It's hugely popular, has a highly anticipated anime. It's not really a surprise as to what this is. This is Chainsaw Man Volume 8 by Tatsuki Fujimoto. This is the story of Denji, who, after being brutally killed by zombies, is given a second chance of life after making a pact with a devil, his devil dog Pochita, and which gives him the powers of a chainsaw, and so he becomes Chainsaw Man, and not really knowing how to deal with this, he is taken in by public security, who are the ones who obviously protect society from devils, and so under the instruction, well, basically the head of the public security division, Makima, is a pretty hot young woman, and Denji is very, as a 15-year-old boy, he's like, you know what, absolutely, I will do whatever you tell me, hot lady. And so begins his days as Chainsaw Man. It's great. It's great. It's got a wacky premise. It's like with Dorohedoro or Dai Dark. It's hyper violent. There's a lot of gory, grotesque body horror and really trippy sequences. Anyone who's familiar with Fujimoto's work with Fire Punch, obviously this is not a surprise, but also similarly to being familiar with Fujimoto's other works, it's also such a interesting character study of all of the characters, but especially Denji. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. I adore this series with all of my heart. I I'm really looking forward to seeing the adaptation. I know we're not supposed to be happy about Mappa doing things, which I'm not. Like, don't exploit workers, but I understand why there's a lot of excitement around it, not only because it's a highly anticipated Jump adaptation, but because of how well Mappa has done with these sorts of shows in the past. Namely, Jujutsu Kaisen, which is very similar in kind of setting and action levels, maybe. Not genre and trope wise, that's much more by the numbers Shonen Jump. But I can definitely see why, and even Dorohedoro, right? So I can see why. Yeah, I have said this. I feel like a broken record because I say this every month, or every time I get one of these volumes, especially. I say the same things about the same creators, the same series, over and over and over again, and I feel like a broken record. But Chainsaw Man is incredibly unique in how it approaches character writing. It's like with the rest of Fujimoto's works, incredibly kind of in-your-face, bizarre, grotesque, pushing the boundaries from the get-go, despite being a Jump title. So it really gives you, like, it can be kind of a shock, or people might be taken aback if they're expecting a more typical Jump title. But, and has just every trigger warning, right? Even in Chainsaw Man, it's definitely milder compared to Fire Punch, but it's still there. So Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch and Look Back as well, although they may at first seem crass, not of much value, just kind of bottom of the barrel, crude humor, ultra violence, shock for shock value. Fujimoto is fantastic at building realistic characters from the worst of circumstances, and you immediately understand why characters make decisions that they do within the world that they inhabit. When these characters, notably from Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch, live such terrible lives in a world, in a society that doesn't value them, that treats them like garbage, that has never given them anything, and for them to still be hopeful, or for them to still want a better life for themselves, that's an incredibly human thing, first of all, to struggle for success, to try to achieve some level of simple happiness, which is within all of his works, right? This is a very, very consistent theme within Fujimoto stories, but it takes a little bit of time especially for new readers, to maybe figure that out, because it's not inherently spelled out to you. Like, his works don't hold your hand either, which I think is really well done. But it's similar. I always kind of liken it to B movies, like monster movies or horror movies, wherein there's a lot of schlock, there's a lot of stuff that's just, just plain bad, whether it be because of nobody actually cared, there's no real story that was wanting to be told here, it was just a studio mandating a director to make X amount of movies a year, which means that we end up with a lot of schlock within the kind of Blumhouse variety. But at the same time, Blumhouse is a great example. There are also films like Get Out things that are telling a story or commenting on society, making a point, that were really a passion project for people involved, whether it be the writer, the director, the actors, whomever, or all three, right? That you have to wade through a lot of schlock to get there. And as presumably, my assumption is that Fujimoto is definitely a film buff. He really enjoys movies. His manga feel really cinematic, which is why I think they're really interestingly suited for adaptation. Although, again, the topic-wise might not make it the easiest choice. But it marks a really important distinction, I feel. Whereas, you can be dumb or schlocky or have a bizarre premise, but that doesn't mean that the story or the creators or the team didn't have something that they wanted to say, and you can't inherently assume what a story will be just from like the premise or from how it looks or from whatever it may be. I wax poetic about this series every time I get a new volume, so I'm sure you're all bored of listening to me reiterate the same points over and over again, but legitimately I do think that Chainsaw Man is one of the most interesting series from Jump in a long time. It really, and I give mild credit to stuff like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen as well, has given a real push to kind of more weird yokai kind of action stuff. This is not yokai. It's not. But it's kind of within that wheelhouse. But Chainsaw Man has definitely paved the way for stuff like Dandadan and other things that we're seeing from maybe less mainstream, like non-Jump titles as well. It's not, wholly unique or new or completely original, which it shouldn't. Like, no completely original story ever is as good as people pretend it is. But I will say that it's caused a real rumble in the market, and I think we'll see more and more weird, quirky stuff from smart people being released, which is good for me, hopefully. Fingers crossed. It's good for me because I enjoy that sort of thing. Fingers crossed in that it is actually good, because like with everything, you see a lot of copycats, people trying to capitalize on the new hit themes of the era. And if that means more wonderful manga for me, I'm not complaining. But yeah, check out Chainsaw Man. It's on the Shonen Jump app and website. It used to be on Manga Plus. Might not be there in its entirety, but try it out if you haven't. And if you just want to wait, the anime is coming out soonish. So yeah. Next we have large term manga, and we'll continue with this stuff. Another quirky series. Weird, but very within the wheelhouse of this creator. I am not caught up with this series because I was missing this volume for a while, and I have volume 10, so couldn't read it. But this is Dead Demons Dead Destruction by Inyo Asano, volume 9. This is the story of a near future wherein Tokyo had fallen victim to Shibuya, I think, fell victim to a alien invasion 3 years prior, or several years prior, 3 I think, but time has passed within the manga, so 3 to 5 years prior. But despite the outcry, despite the confirmation that there are aliens and they exist and they are trying to fight us. They're not particularly strong, so after the first initial skirmish, it's been kind of a standoff between this hulking, looming, UFO above the city and just kind of the Japanese defense force, or self-defense force. And yeah, it's in pretty typical Asano fashion. It's not so much a thrilling sci-fi series. It's more so about the disconnect within society and humans' adaptability to any situation. So, as I mentioned, despite kind of initial hubbub, and people having died and all sorts of things, now that this kind of ongoing, drawn out skirmish, low stakes, low fatality skirmish with aliens has been going on for so many years, and this spacecraft has been there for so long, 3 years, but people have gotten used to it. It's not interesting, it's not exciting anymore, it's not really even a topic of much concern for a lot of people. And the way that it's portrayed is Asano's very good at puzzling out factions of society, and especially kind of nihilistic factions, right? They have, the series has people who are constantly protesting against alien invasion, and most people within society kind of find them annoying or weird, or making too much of a deal out of things, or overreacting, right? Where they go, when they go out in full hazmat gear and all sorts of things and are holding signs and causing disruption, and also kind of inherent xenophobia against, or bigotry against, this kind of alien race that they have never seen and never met, but the otherization of the opposite party. And then so we have our main characters, who at the beginning of the story are two high school girls. They're now kind of graduated and all sorts of things, but one who is just kind of trying to live her day-to-day life and doesn't really have much concern aside from the fact that her mother has really fallen into these anti-alien sentiments. Her father went missing on the day 3 years ago that aliens first attacked, so he's presumed dead, probably. And so she has a breakdown at home because she can't really see to her mother's point of obsession with this. And her friend, one of her best friends, is very into it. She's like keen for an all-out war. She just wants something interesting in life to happen, because she finds it kind of absurd that within these 3 years, aliens have become normal. She's like, you would never think that people would get used to an idea like this, but we have, and it's really lame that we have. She's always looking for excitement and interest. And there's other stuff going on as well, that at some point they come across one of these aliens, and he kind of gives insight to maybe the other side of it, which is really, really well done. Although I am a fan of Asano, I can't read a lot of his works multiple times, right? Like, I think it's very, very hard to try to encourage people to read Goodnight Pun Pun more than once, or A Girl by the Shore more than once, even once, to be honest. There's a lot of stuff within his, and Downfall, just, they're bleak. They're really, really bleak. Solanin, I'd even argue, is pretty hard to recommend multiple times, despite being reading multiple times, despite being his easiest work to get into. But I would amend that in saying that Da Destruction is probably his most not only captivating, interesting story, personally, but I think it's also his most hopeful story, which, although still completely infused with the nihilism of his works, it has a much more hopeful or curious lilt rather than kind of a sad acceptance that the world is shit and there's nothing we can do about it, which kind of permeates all of the rest of his works, of bad things happening to good people for no real reason, which is just like a really unproductive mindset to have, which is the point for a lot of Asano's works, but I don't think it's necessarily healthy to be encouraging everyone to read all of that all of the time, which is, I see a little bit of, because Asano is so beloved, both, you know, in English-speaking markets and in Japan. And again, although I am a fan of his, I think you have to be in a very particular mood, and I also think you should avoid his stuff when you're in a particular mindset, maybe, because there's a lot of confirmation bias if you're already in like a very specific headspace reading some of his works. So, you know, obviously I'm not the manga police. I can't tell people to read and to not read anything, but I would say that if I was to recommend a title from Asano, this one would be the one that I would choose over the rest, even just everything, all the entirety of the rest of his body of work, especially Pun Pun, which is his really only other series that comes close to this in length. But again, you know, I'm not the manga police. Just everyone enjoy what they read. But I do recommend this one because it has a lot of Asano's typical kind of thoughts and feelings and themes, but it explores them in notably different ways to how his other works broach some of these topics. Oh well, yeah. Dead Demons, Dead Destruction, Volume 9. So next we have a 7 Seas volume, large term volume. This is another series that I really enjoy. It's really cute, sweet, lovable, romance fashion. And this is volume 3 of My Androgynous Boyfriend by Tomiko. This is a story of Meguro, who is kind of an androgynous beauty. He's a model who styles himself in kind of a in a non-masculine way. He within the genderless fashion movement within Japan. So kind of androgynously feminine look, which is not what is androgyny, right? But anyway, it's about him and his girlfriend Wako, who is a magazine editor, who's just kind of, you know, working office woman, and their relationship and his relationship with friends and with work and all sorts of things. And it's really sweet. Love the romantic relationship. They're an established couple, so they've known each other for a long time. They've been together since high school, and now they're, you know, mid to late 20s. They're really supportive of each other. It's got a very sweet domestic feel, and despite, you know, Meguro being, this isn't like a LGBT title. Meguro isn't queer. He's just likes dressing in a way that makes him feel comfortable. He is like a cis hetero man, and his only ever well, he's only really ever liked one woman, perhaps. His girlfriend, he's just head over heels for. He's a wife guy, just by the way, so that's extra points. um, but yeah, and so it's about, yeah, kind of this genderless fashion movement in Japan, their relationship, um, his work as a model, and how people perceive him as well, because obviously, there's still expectations in society to like gender essentialism of, oh, boy must look like this, girl must look like this, but that's, the fashion aspect is almost secondary. I don't really care that much about that. It's more so I just like seeing these two people who love each other gush over each other and be super supportive. There's a part in this where because of COVID, they're working from home, and they have to kind of work separately, and they're not used to seeing each other in their working environment, so they're both like secretly like, oh my god, they're so cool, that's me, I can't believe that's my partner, oh my god. So they kind of have to not spend time together because they get too caught up in like adoring each other, and I think that's really sweet. I'm like, oh god damn it, that's so cute. But yeah, I really like it. It's not like, it's not gonna win any awards or anything. But it's just nice. I always like to see couples who love each other regardless of, gender and sexuality. I just want people to care about the people that they're dating, which is not always the case in real life, but even in fiction. I just like people who like their partners. I like reading about that. And I also like the aspect of domesticity of like an established couple, of seeing people who've been together for a while and who understand, things about their partners that you wouldn't necessarily know if you're just first going out. Yeah, My Androgynous Boyfriend is really fun and cute, and yeah, it's a good time. I enjoy it. Next, we have another super cute, heartwarming series that makes me cry. This is from Square Enix. This is volume 4 of A Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai. This is so gosh darn sweet. This is the story of a older man, somewhat recently widowed, and his ugly cat. And it's so good. I'm not like I don't dislike cats. Our family had a cat. We haven't had a cat for many years, but we have had cats, right? And I don't dislike cats or anything, but I'm not a cat person inherently, which is, I think, fine. I'm not like, oh, cats are evil, get rid of them, they're trying to murder you. No, I don't care. But like, I'm not a cat person insofar as that, there's been a lot of cat manga released recently, and I really don't have an interest because I'm not obsessed with my cat. I don't have a cat. I did have a dog who passed away earlier in the year, and maybe that's because I'm more of a dog person, but I don't know. Like, my point is, I'm not like, oh, everything that's about a cat I have to buy because they're my favorite animals, I love cats, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not me, and it's never been me. But this manga is so sweet. It's about finding family, and also about acceptance and unconditional love, and finding happiness after a hard time, after grief, after rejection. It's so sweet and cute and good. This is a very popular series. I think most people who have read it really enjoy it, and for good reason. It's very, 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 very good. I would encourage people to read it, even if you're like me and not inherently a cat person. It's sweet. And we meet more people and their ugly cats. And it's just it feels like a warm hug. It feels like if a manga series was a warm hug, that's what this series would be. Yeah, I love it. It's really good. That's really reductive, but what can I say? It's sweet. It's beyond sweet. It's just lovely. Next we have the Kodansha manga, and there's quite a bit of Kodansha manga. I will be brief but fair. The first one is Volume 5 of Blue Period by Tsubasa Yamaguchi. I know this has a anime on Netflix right now. I have not watched any of it yet. But this is the story of a hard-working, sort of delinquent high school boy. He's not exactly like honor roll, but he's very hardworking, always very focused on his studies, etc. But in his second year of high school, he discovers a real passion for art, traditional art, which he never really realized or acknowledged before. And so, beyond expectations and kind of against everything that he had previously been working towards, he decides that he wants to go to an art school. But he realizes he wants to be an artist, but he also realizes that his family can't afford to send him to the expensive private art schools. So he's aiming for just the one public art school, which is also the best best art school, but it's the only one that is fully public and doesn't have the same kind of fee or admission. And so it's about a young artist who is struggling and working and trying to discover himself and discover the pieces, the artwork that he wants to create, and how he can discover really how art becomes an expression of himself. It's fantastic. It's beautifully done. It's very evocative, even if you're not like a traditional artist or an artist full stop. I have always been of the sentiment, and I've said this before in regards to the series, this is one that appeals to anyone who's had a passion and an interest in something that other people don't really understand, that other people might not value, and the amount of hard work that it takes to follow a dream like that, to not listen to disregard kind of people who say you're making bad choices or you're making dumb decisions, regardless, right? And artists come in all sorts, whether it be musicians, writers, painters, sculptors, mathematicians. Like, there's so many different ways to create art, and it's such a fundamental part of the human experience, being able to communicate emotions in a way that other people can appreciate but also interpret, and as an outlet, obviously, for the creator to explore something that they want to share with the world something that matters to them, or something that they're concerned about, or something that they've noticed, and something that has very high enough of value to them that they have that feeling of sharing. It's really interesting. It's really interesting. And a lot of my favorite parts of this manga is this exploration of how people interpret art and how, like, what makes good art, right? Which is kind of an eternal debate. But not just what makes good art, but what qualifies as art. Because that's something that, you know, is kind of somewhat controversial maybe sometimes, because people will say, like, oh, that's really bad, it's not, you know, whatever. The schlockiest dumb blockbuster movie is technically still art. It might not be high art, it might not be, you know, revolutionary or telling an important story or an important message about society, but it still takes incredible talent and interest and involvement and hard work to create something like that. But then also the commercialization of artwork, or art full stop, is such an interesting topic and is handled really well in this, because obviously, like, one of the big things that you hear from people who are illustrators or graphic designers or who pursue art as a career is that you get very little, you know, encouragement. You get very little support. People will always kind of assume that you will be struggling because it's not, within our current society, it's not something that for a lot of people can be a full-time job. So a lot of people see it as a useless thing to pursue, which is, you know, fundamentally flawed, because, again, as I said, it's one of the inherent, just crucial ways throughout history since you know, proto-humans could smear mud on walls. Like, we've been creating artwork, and it's such an important thing. So to kind of dismiss it as not valuable, as something to be consumed and something to be, you know, taken advantage of, not valued whatsoever. It's sad, and it's really well done with how that kind of profitability and marketability versus, you know, a passion project or an interest in creating high art, and also what universities look for, which isn't inherently, you know, always the best of the best, or isn't always inherently, you know, going to be something that you want to make or represents you as an artist. It's really, really good. And I haven't watched the anime, so I cannot comment on it, but I do recommend the manga. Next, we have another Kodansha manga, one that I haven't read this volume yet because I just haven't had a lot of time, and a bunch of stuff came really close to the end of the month, so I just haven't had time. But this is volume 5 of Mangas of the Library by Mitsu Izumi. This is a wonderful fantasy story about a boy who is trying to become a Kafka, aka a librarian, and also like a wider mystery that may influence society, and it's just, it's super good. And he's currently working, he's in training, he's trying to, you know, fulfill this dream of being a librarian that he's had since childhood. It's fantastic. It's beautiful. I love it. You know, there's some iffy things that come with the idea of like fantasy racism and stuff that are always inherent in this sort of thing. But aside from those kind of mild criticisms, this is just really magical. It's really well done. I really like the main character, Theo, and all of the other, Kafka, what's the word? Hopefuls. The world feels really vibrant, feels really lived in. And this was such a series, a series that just came out of nowhere the year before last when it first debuted in English. I don't think anyone knew anything about this. It was such a mystery, and now it's one that I, at least within the circles that I pay attention to, is a series that people really look forward to, is one that continues to create this world just a little bit more magical than our own, and is really about the love of reading and the appreciation of storytelling and the power that fiction especially can give people and give those in situations where they have no support, where they have no real feeling of an escape, right? But most notably, a source of power and hope, maybe, for marginalized people, for those who don't see, that don't have an easy life necessarily. It's very well balanced in that respect. As I said, the actual fantasy racism allegory is a bit teeth gritting, wherein our main character Theo is a pale-skinned, green-eyed, blonde, waif of a boy who is and the outsider within a society of brown folks. So you're like, that's not very good. But as I said, it's kind of a mild criticism when you consider everything else that this series is actually about. And obviously that sort of thing is more important to people than others. But I don't think it's inherently a negative to the point that it's unreadable or, unenjoyable. And it impacts the actual message of the story. But it's also not my place to say what does and doesn't make people upset, because it is valid to think that it's like, that's probably not the best way that could have been done. But regardless, I do think that this is a wonderful series. I do think it's one that is worth reading, worth trying if it sounds interesting to you. We've slowly learned more and more about this world, about this book, right? This story being told within the story itself, and that's a really interesting aspect that's developed over the course of the last book or so. Yeah, check it out, especially if you like kind of more low-key fantasy story that isn't full of, great wars and dragons and all sorts of things. It's a little bit more grounded in the day-to-day lives of people who are not wanting to become the greatest warrior of all time or anything. So, yeah. Next we have Volume 9 of Perfect World by Riya Araga. This is a 12-volume series, josei series about... I feel like I repeat myself constantly. It's a romance between two former... they were in the same graduating class in school. They knew each other, but weren't super close, but they reconnected at their 10-year graduation reunion, but they had both changed, one more notably than the other, but despite time and disability, the two of them decide to start a relationship because they've always had kind of feelings for each other. And as it goes, it's the story of their relationship, the ups and downs, the very real impact that a physical disability can have on a relationship as well as an individual. And again, I've said it before in regards to the series, I appreciate how this series doesn't use our main male character being in a wheelchair, having a spinal injury, as like a gimmick. It's never a small, like, it's never just, oh, well, obviously the author just wanted to draw a wheelchair, right? Like, it does delve quite deep into kind of medical complications, in how, you know, people with certain need for care do, like, obviously have those needs, and whether you get a full-time nurse or whether you as a partner become a carer. Like, those discussions are really, really at the forefront of the series, and I think it's a really nuanced and interesting perspective that, you know, obviously this shouldn't be a controversial. Obviously, people with disabilities deserve love. They're humans too. They're people too. And so treating a disabled character, especially a noticeably disabled, physically disabled character, where compared to some more hidden disabilities like deafness, is something that society, like, immediately recognizes and notices and can judge as well, inherently make assumptions on, is handled pretty interestingly. And I think that it's just a really sweet story about love kind of overcoming what other people might see as insurmountable odds, or despite, you know, society and family and friends warning them about problems, that they still care more so about each other, and care enough about each other that they're willing to take on the world together, even if it might not be the smartest decision or the perfect choice, right? Like, it might mean that it's a lot more hard work for both of them, but they care enough about each other to commit to that hard work. It's just really well done. The 10th volume is the last one that I've read digitally, so volume 11 and 12 are I haven't read, so I am probably going to reread the whole thing before I get 11 and 12, and then read those once they come out. But it's very good. I enjoy the series very much, and it's pretty, like, typical josei style. Like, it's not gorgeous or anything, it's just what you'd expect, maybe. And I did like this volume a lot when I read it, especially because it did have our main character, her father, finally having, like, a conversation with this boy, and kind of confronting his own bigotry and bias. It's well done. It's well done. I like it a lot. So yeah, check it out if it sounds like something you're interested in. Next, another one of mine and many other people's favorite series currently being released is one that saw great accolades the last couple years, for well-deserved reasons, and that is volume 8 of Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. This is the story of a young girl called Coco who discovers magic and is now training to become a witch, along with several other people. You know, the atelier that she belongs to, run by Kufri, and her kind of learning about the magical world that she really didn't have any insight into before this. It's so good. like, oh my god, it's so good. It just you always think that like a certain level of quality will be consistent, but things will have their ups and downs, and like they won't be that good at some points, but really good in other points. No, this one's just consistently fantastic all the time. I don't know how Shirahama does it. I adore this series so much. Everything about it is good. And I care so much about all of these kids, and all of these adults, but all of these kids. I don't know how to even verbalize how much I adore this series, because it truly is adoration. Yeah, I feel like maybe these videos are really boring because I always talk about things that I really, really love, and I don't have any hot takes about things being bad or stupid or which, because I'm not silly, I don't spend money on stuff I don't like. But I just feel like maybe this is a bit redundant, just me saying like, oh, I love this series, oh, it's so good, this is one of my favorite series, I love the series, over and over and over again, because I legitimately do believe that for almost each and every single thing that I not only buy but talk about in these videos. And the amount of manga, especially, but everything, comics, novels, light novels, etc., that we've gotten, there's so much, right? There's just so much. And so the consistency of high quality stuff that I enjoy is just through the roof. So I am living in just a feast time wherein I am always enjoying myself, which honestly, that should be what you're aiming for when it comes to a hobby, is enjoying yourself. But man, oh man, Witch Hat Atelier, I love it. I love it so much. If you're not reading this, then you're missing out on one of the best comics of the last several years. You're doing yourself a disservice, honestly, and you should check it out. It's phenomenal. For general manga, and the only hardcover manga that I got this month, another Kodansha title, and this is Makoto Yukimura's Vineland Saga, Volume 12? Well, Volumes 23, 24, Book 12 of the Kodansha release. This is a historical manga by the creator of Planetes about the Viking occupation of England. And more specifically, a young Viking named Thorfinn, who after initially it's a story about him getting revenge for the murder of his father, but rather than that actually being the story, that is quite fun, because if you're reading the volumes, once that storyline wraps up, it says it's the end of the prologue, which it actually is, because it's not so much a story of revenge, but more so a story of finding purpose, especially after your life has been driven by hatred for so long. It's really good. It's really good. I enjoy Yukimura's works anyway, and this is a title that continues to be fantastic. If you're a fan of historical manga, I would encourage you to try it. A bunch of great characters, bunch of great history. It's not inherently the series that it starts out as, and if you're expecting it to be blood and guts and Viking plundering the whole time, then you're going to be upset, because it's really not that. It's not that at all after a point, and that's good. That's important. Similarly, I think it's a much more hopeful story than first blush may imply. But Vinland Saga is fantastic. I don't need to convince people about how good Vinland Saga is. It's one of those series that has definitely seen a huge uptick in popularity over the last several years. It's one that still gets quoted as being, like, in danger of low sales, which it's not. Guys, stop perpetuating this myth. Oh my god. Even at the time, I was like, this is clever marketing, and I don't believe 100% that this is reality. But especially with the recent anime, people love this series. You don't need to encourage people to buy it because people are already buying it. It's not going to get cancelled. Anyway, mild tangential rant over. But regardless, it is a really strong historical drama, a historical character piece. I am a big fan of historical fiction anyway. Of all shades. And this is, as a Yukimura fan, this is fantastic. I really enjoy it, and I encourage people to try it if you haven't, although most people have, and they love it, so I'm glad for that. Always nice when we get a new volume of this series. The BL, oh my gosh, there's so much BL. I haven't read most of it, but I don't need to because I know that I'll enjoy it. So, we have quite a few debuts. How am I going to do this? Okay. We will start with this, I think. So, we have one large trim manga, BL manga. This is a BL title from Seven Seas, one that I was really looking forward to, and oh my gosh, I love it so much. So this is the single volume, although it does have a sequel volume, so technically it's not the end of the story. But this is Restart After Coming Back Home by Kokomi. This is the story of a guy who returns to his hometown after some issues at work, some problems. He's come back home, and everything's the same, right? It's been 10 years, life hasn't changed much, but the one thing that has changed is that there's a new guy in town who has been living there in the 10 years since he left for high school, who he doesn't know anything about, but like everyone in the community has known. One of their neighbors adopted this boy in high school 10 years ago, so he's the same age, but he doesn't really know this guy. It's not like a childhood friend or anything, but he's really one of the only few people he knows, and who spends time with him because gossip, small towns, and our main character is kind of avoiding a lot of the people he's known, and it's been a decade, right? He didn't go to high school in the area, so he doesn't have a huge amount of friends his age. Anyone he would have known would have been prior to in like primary school and things, and people move out. It's not young people leave small towns. They don't typically come back to small towns or stay in small towns outside of certain circumstances. So they slowly become closer and closer friends, spend more time together, and are support for each other. They go through some pretty bad stuff. Like there's a lot of issues that happen, and in those moments they are supportive of each other. And it's really good. Oh, it's really good. It's really good. I don't think it's explicit at all. I don't remember if it is. I don't think so. No, it's 13+. There's nothing explicit in it, so this is one you can read at grandma's without too much trouble, I'd say. But I love the art style. I love how the characters talk to each other. It's fun. You can feel the familiarity that people have, but also like the distance they put between each other, which is a big aspect of this manga, of insurmountable distances and closing those distances. It's really good. It's really good. And my heart got all warm and fuzzy reading it. I can't wait for the second volume, to be perfectly honest. It was good. Really, 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 really good. If you want a sweet, kind of slow burn romance, set in a sleepy town between just two people who, have their problems individually, but complement each other well. Check this one out. It's really, it's good. That's so reductive, but it is. It's good. We have the other 7 Seas BL title, which is not large term, it's their more standard small term. And this is The Two Lions by Nagisa Furuya. This is the story of 2 university students who actually were high school, not classmates. They were in the same grade in high school. They went to the same high school, but were never friends there. But after our main character discovers that this other guy, he's known him for much longer, and he remembers his bad reputation, he kind of becomes his friend and is trying to help him become more social, because said bad reputation is kind of misconstrued. It's not, obviously there's more to the story than what was evident and obvious at the time when they were teens. And again, as these things go, they get closer, they become really good friends, and, one ends up realizing he has feelings for the other, and, This is another one that's, I don't think, explicit. Yeah, 13. These are both 7 Seas titles are not explicit. There's no sex in either of them. There's barely a kiss in this one, to be perfectly honest. I don't even remember about... I mean, there's kissing and restart after coming back home, but not making out. So if you're wanting something spicy, then maybe these aren't the titles for you, but it's just a really... And even this one kind of ends a little bit ambiguously, wherein they're going out and they, they're aware of each other's feelings. They're trying to make things work, but they're not inherently, head over heels. This is definitely, these two are made for each other. This is gonna happily ever after. It will, because it's manga. But, you can understand if in, the next 3 months they just decided to stay friends. They realized that there wasn't that much, romantic or sexual attraction there. It's good. It's an interesting way it's an interesting perspective, and it ends at a point that I haven't seen for a long time in BL, because I'm not going to say that there's not BL manga that end with an ambiguously, oh yeah, and then they reveal their feelings, and then it's cute, but then almost always there's an extra chapter where they get down and dirty, and you're like, okay, they be having some physical intimacy. These two, there are black-haired boy here. He's still kind of testing the waters. He doesn't really know even his own feelings, but he's willing to, take a chance, and obviously cares enough about this other guy that he's willing and able, but just not, he wasn't harboring secret feelings for his friend this whole time. And so now it's just kind of in the process of figuring out where he stands, and if this will develop into a more romantic affection. It's interesting. I liked it a lot, actually. And this is even regardless, this is a good series. I really like the art style. I like the expressiveness of the eyes in particular. I think it's just a good time, and the way that these characters, again, kind of complement each other, how they support each other, it's good. It's good. is worth the read. And if you're a fan of kind of soft, slow burn BL, this is the one. So you should try it. It's good. Next, we have a single volume with like a bunch of sequels / spin-offs from Sublime. This one is spicy, so I'm not gonna flip through it as much. It's only spicy at the end, right? But it still gets spicy, and I'm pretty sure it's it's uncensored spiciness, which is a rarity. I haven't seen that outside of a couple other Sublime titles and Faku and Kuma titles. I wasn't expecting uncensored. Maybe they mentioned it in marketing, but I just wasn't aware. But anyway, this is Sayonara Game by Yu Minaduki. There's a sequel, Change World, and there's a sequel spin-off called Love Nest. So this is like a larger world. I think Change World is the same couple. Love Nest is a different couple. I don't know. I've never read them. I'm not the expert, but I know that there is more out there from this creator that people are looking forward to. So this is the story of a businessman guy who his younger sister's studying for exams, and one of his old juniors from the baseball team, not basketball, baseball team, he was going to help her study, but he couldn't. He had to pull out last minute, so said junior got another guy from the baseball team to help the sister study instead. And little does our main character know that said new junior, who he doesn't even really remember, right? He's just some guy, has always kind of harbored this real strong affection, respect for him, which has over the years developed into, more romance. And, they over time, our main character kind of realizes his feelings and is trying to puzzle through how he feels about this other guy and their relationship. And meanwhile his sister also has feelings for this guy, and there's all sorts of there's little side things happening. I wouldn't say that I adored this series necessarily. I think it was solidly decent. It's exactly what it needs to be. It's spicy at the end. As I said, uncensored spicy. And you're like, okay, well, I can see how these two are working out, and there's growth from both sides, and overall it's a good time. But it's not the best thing I've ever read, right? And if this was it'd be one that I'm yeah, it's good, but I wouldn't necessarily say go buy it and it's a must read. And even now I wouldn't say it's a must read, but I do think that with a sequel volume, and now this is the groundwork, right? It's the get together, and you'll see more of an interesting dynamic and more involved story in the sequel volumes, which is what I'm actually looking forward to. Because I've heard nothing but good things about this creator and the series as a whole. Maybe not Sayonara Game, but Love Nest, I've heard a lot of really good things about. So, maybe I'm just not in the right crowds. But it's not. This is fine. This is good. It was fine. It's a solid starting block for a larger series, which is exactly what it is. It's decent enough, but similarly to Therapy XXX being a solid, if not too interesting or amazing starting block, foundational book to a much more interesting, larger series franchise with Therapy Game. So, yeah. Sometimes a book's just gotta be the starting point, and that's fine. You know, as the creator gets more comfortable with the characters, becomes more familiar with the characters and where they want to do things with them and take certain stories into account, you get more comfortable as a writer and as a reader. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what this brings, because as I said, I didn't hate this. I didn't even dislike it. I think it was solidly good. Not the best thing I've ever read, but it was good. I'm looking forward to more. Speaking of larger franchises that are better, the other Sublime debut that I got, and I haven't opened yet because I literally got it today, so I haven't read it, is Therapy Game Restart by Meguro Hinohara. This is the sequel to Therapy Game, wherein Shizuma and Minato, the brothers of the original couple, are like finally established, like they're together, and so now I guess it's their life as an established couple and all the ups and downs that may bring, because they have very different lives and work schedules and things, and we'll see how that plays out. But as we know, love will triumph. Sometimes in some series it shouldn't, but in this one you want these kids to work out, right? they're just trying their best. Yeah, check it out. Therapy Game. And oh my god. The other one. The original one. The Secret XXX, which sounds way more explicit than it is. It's not. Are both very good. But yeah, so happy to continue this franchise. The other one still in its plastic wrap because I haven't opened it yet, because I just got it today, is Volume 2 of Black and White by Sachimo. This is a series about two actors, one who's a lot more popular than the other, who are secretly dating and have been for a long time, and their relationship, and trying to keep their relationship private, but also struggling with jealousy, but also struggling with like wanting their partners to succeed and be recognized for their talents. It's good. The first volume was really strong start. Looking forward to the second volume. There's like 6 or 7 of these in Japanese, so it's longer. It's a longer title. And I think it's with the amount of potential storylines and directions the series could go, I think there's a lot that can be explored, not even necessarily related to the romance, and more so related to like the entertainment acting industry. That could be really interesting. So I look forward to seeing how this one develops. Then we also have, so the last Sublime volume is also one covered in plastic still, because I haven't read this one. I'm saving it, so I have all the last 3 volumes to read all at once. I've read the first 2. Last 3 are, it's a 5-volume series, so I was like, I'll just wait. So this is volume 4 of Jealousy by Scarlett Berico. This is problematique with a capital P. Oh my goodness. This is a spin-off of Fourth Generation's Head, whatever it is. The very suggestive title, also by Scarlett Berico, focused on the kind of older generation of the Yakuza. One of the villains in Fourth Generation Head, he's the main character in this, and oh my goodness, this is a mess. If you like messy drama, then oh my gosh, this is the story of said villain. I don't even remember, what is his name? Akitora. No, Uichi. Akitora. So Uichi is our main character, And he's just, like, ever since he met Akitora, who's, like, the head of this Yakuza family, he's just been head over heels. So much so that despite Akitora not really, like, showing much commitment to him, he just is trying to do everything that he can to make himself useful to Akitora. And so, it's about their kind of on again, off again relationship ever since the 80s, his whole life. But Akitora has, he's been married and he has a kid who is the main character in the first one. So, like, he's not gonna leave his family or his wife. He's the head of this Yakuza group, so, like, he has certain people have expectations of him, blah, 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 blah. But, oh my god, mess and drama. And yeah, this is not, like, this is not a sweet, like, first love story about people that you necessarily want to get together, but it's compelling. I like it a lot, even though this character was, like, legitimately a villain in the first original volume. It's interesting to see how long his devotion and obsession, to be perfectly honest, has kind of compelled his life and influenced his choices, and why he's been so, like, devoted to this guy who really doesn't give him the time of day for a lot of time. It's an interesting time, honestly, and I look forward to finishing it all up, because Scarlet Barracuda, oh my god, so she's so talented, but also, like, half the time you're like, man, there's some problems with this. Why is this sexy? But also, like, I would if it was anyone else, I'd be like, never. I would not read this. Scarlet Barracuda, she's got the magic touch. I don't know what she does, but it's great. So yeah, Jealousy Volume 4. Now, if we're going to talk about problematique with a capital P, the next series that I'm going to talk about, it is BL. It's not a manga. It's a webcomic that I've bought volumes for before. And I mistakenly said that it was finished in 6 volumes. It is not. It is not even close. It's finished in 9 volumes. So I'm like, that's a lot of volumes. I read the whole thing on whatever service it's on. Listen, obviously. This is a Korean webtoon. The English version, the English release of said Korean webtoon. And this is BJ Alex by Minghwa. So, this is, an explicit BL title about a university student who has, he's kind of recently returned to university after his military service. He's just kind of living his life, has a job. He works at a coffee shop, Starbucks equivalent, right? He has one friend. His coworker at work is, like, the sassy gay best friend. That's this guy. But at night, he will go to his apartment and he will watch BJ Alex. Broadcast jockey Alex, BJs or broadcast jockeys are basically, like, cam boys, right? There. And, he'll enjoy himself. He'll get off on that. But one day he discovers that, like, the most popular boy in school, in his seminars, who's a couple years older, in the same club or department or something, is actually this cam boy that he's had the hots for a long time, that he's been watching, like, almost every night, because the guy has, like, a very noticeable birthmark on his side, and thus, through, like, a mixture of blackmail and, like, so yeah, anyway, so this like really popular guy, he freaks the fuck out when the guy's like, "Are you BJ Alex?" He's like, "How do you know that? What the fuck?" So he tries to in order so that our main character doesn't blackmail him, because which he would never do because he's a literal puppy and would never think to do that. But he's like, I'll grant you whatever request you want, you know, and if you just keep this a secret. And so he's like, okay, what about if I will you give me a hug? And he's like, really, that's it? And then, so he does that, and he's like, okay, no, like, I actually feel bad. What if I just sleep with you? It'll let your dreams come true. You know, obviously you're a fan. But, you know, that way you can have a good memory and you never have to speak about this to anyone. And, yeah, then you can get out of my life. And so he's like, oh, but I've never done this before, because he's a sweet little virgin boy. And so he's like, oh, I don't sleep with virgins because toxic masculinity, but also, so anyway, but so he sucks them off basically, but then anyway, so he's just like, okay, I'm never out to talk to that loser ever again. My secret's safe. It's fine. But he goes back to camming and he realizes that he can't perform. He can't do it. Nothing's working. The only thing that's working is the memories of that underclassman, that dork, that from the other night. And so he's like, okay, this is an issue, but it's fine. I can handle this. So he proposes to our main character, hey, what if we just become like sex friends? Well, not even that, sex acquaintances. I don't know, I just need practice, and, you know, you get to sleep with your favorite. And so, oh, poor DJ, DG, our main character, he's just, like, a little bit smitten. He realizes, like, there's not really a good outcome for this, but he's kind of half in love, and so he's like, alright. And, yeah. What's his name? It's not Alex, but, like, the other guy. Such an asshole. He's so terrible, but over the course of the series, we find out why. You know, he's been hurt before, and you know, he's starting to get jealous over this guy that he doesn't even like, apparently. And then, you know, pretty normal shenanigans for this kind of by the numbers BL. I'm like, man, this guy is an asshole. You deserve better. Honestly, treat yourself. But also, like, you know, it's fine. It's fiction. We know that Alex isn't actually a bad guy. He'll get better. But, oh my god, okay. The first couple books, or the first two books, there's, like, maybe a bit of dubious consent, maybe. Volume 3 and 4 definitely has, like, more dubious consent. There's times where both partners are not having a fun time. So, you know, be wary. But having read the whole thing, like, it's fine. You know, I've read a lot more worse in my day. I feel like a grandma. But, like, it's certainly not the worst I've ever read. And, if you're wanting to support English language webtoons and you like BL stuff and you like BJ Alex, because it is a very popular series, then, you know what to expect. If you've read a lot of, like, the more tropey BL stuff, then you absolutely will have no problem with this. But yeah, so what else? I'm gonna try and open a page that isn't, like, explicit, because this is pretty explicit a lot of the time. It's got a cute art style, like, pretty typical for this. It came with the photo card. All of them comes with a photo card, the first printing. But yeah, then these two volumes kind of introduce these two characters more, and they start working together, because this guy is also a BJ, but he's, like, more into, you know, BDSM, and this, as I said, this is, like, the sassy gay best friend, co-worker, who like is a big fan. And, you know, they kind of come across each other and have instance, and our main character helps, you know, connect them properly. And so now he's working with him as his sub and all sorts of... It's kind of a more healthy relationship between these two. Definitely more healthy relationship between these two. Although I don't know how... I don't remember how quickly it turns, like, more romantic. It's certainly one-sided from MD, this guy's side. He'll win him over one day, dude. Yeah, it's a good time. If it's in the same wheelhouse as like a lot of tropey BL stuff, it's not terrible. If you're used to that, give it a look. It is interesting, and it's nice to see legend and kind of webcomics in general, see it find a wider audience. Light novels. Holy crap, so many. I'll start with this one because it's the only it's the only Japanese light novel debut that I got this month. But one that I've been looking forward to. It's been out for a little while. I just hadn't gotten around to picking it up myself. This is Bond and Book, The Devotion of the Surgery Room by Mizuki Nomura. This is the same creator as Book Girl, and it's set in the Book Girl universe. I don't think there's any character crossover between the two, but it's set in the same world. I haven't read this yet, so I can't really give my thoughts on it, but it's one that was kind of a surprise license, but I'm really happy that Yen Press has put it out. And I'm also surprised, maybe happily surprised, that it's gotten a hardcover, considering that Book Girl was paperback only, which at the time made sense because it was one of their first licenses for light novels. But now I'm kind of like, but they don't match though. That's fine. I'm not that much of a pain in the butt, but at the same time I'm kind of a pain in the butt about that. But I do look forward to reading this one. I really enjoy Book Girl. It's one of my favorites even now, and I recommend it to people. It's only 8 volumes long. And I guess this one's ongoing. I know nothing about it. Absolutely nothing about it. Maybe I should read the blurb. A book's love for its reader is boundless. Musubu Enoki is an ordinary high schooler with an extraordinary ability. He can hear the voices of books. Okay, so similar to Book Girl, wherein she eats books, like she gains sustenance from eating words off the page. When he happens to notice one lost and crying, the young man sets out to reunite a children's classic with its original owner. Musubu leaves no page unturned in his quest to assist tomes of all sorts, including The Surgery Room by classic Japanese author Kyoka Izumi. But can this advocate for books really make their dreams come true? Find out in this Biblia Mystery you won't want to put down. Okay, I see what's going on here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I mean, I already was, but I will read this soon. I will put it on the never-ending stack of books next to my bed. Going titles from Yen Press / Yen On, we have volume 22 of Spice and Wolf, Springlog 5 by Isuna Hasekura. Oh yeah, it's been a while since I read volume 21, to be perfectly honest. I'm like 3 volumes behind Wolf and Parchment too, so oof. But I will read the blurb. With the Nyohira bathhouse in good hands, Lawrence and Holo continue their journey exploring the world anew. Of course, it wouldn't be much of an adventure if they didn't run into some new faces, and some old ones too. So when their longtime friend Elsa asks them to investigate a cursed mountain to discover the secret of the wandering alchemists and a fallen angel, of course they accept. It may be some time yet until they catch up with Cole and Muri, who have somehow gotten into a bit of matrimonial trouble of their own. Oh my god, what's been happening in Wolf and Parchment? Jeez! Oh, not sure how I like that development. But it is nice to see a return to traveling for these two, because the last 4 spring log volumes have been short story collections about their, kind of quiet lives in running a bathhouse, which are always good. Like, that is not bad, but it's part of the interest of Spice and Wolf is them coming into different situations and meeting new people and coming across different towns with different attitudes and business opportunities, and it's nice to see a return to form with that. Thank you, Hasakura. I'm looking forward to it. Now I need to maybe catch up on Wolf and Parchment, because I feel like maybe there's been a misinterpretation in a letter, but we'll have to figure that out when we get there, I guess. Next, I have 3 volumes from the same series. This is one, I tried volume 1 on recommendation from a couple people, because I was asking, like, oh, hey, what's a good light novel series that I should try? I've kind of fallen behind. These are what I've already read. Let me know, what do you think? I think this series also just recently got announced for an anime adaptation, maybe? Maybe. I don't remember. Which wouldn't surprise me. But, so this is volumes 2, 3, and 4. I read the first one, enjoyed it enough. 2, 3, and 4, decided to pick up. 2 and 3, I believe, are one story arc, and then 4 is more standalone, maybe? But this is Reign of the 7 Spellblades by Bokuto Uno. So, this follows this guy, Oliver, and this girl here, Nanao, who comes from a far-flung Asian country. She was like a child soldier. But it's not called Asia because this is a fantasy world. But, she was a child soldier from an Asian country wherein magic was never, recognized, but one of the teachers from the Kimberly Magic Witchcraft Academy, or whatever the hell it's called, discovered her and was like, oh, hey, come to the school. So she's come to the school. Oliver and a bunch of other kids are also there. It's not a coincidence that people call this, Harry Potter, but without the worst kind of person as an author. I don't know anything about Bokuto Uno, but I would say that if you're wanting a magic school academy story and don't want to read stuff from a terrible person, then this is a pretty good second, this is what I'd recommend. It's very much similar to, the elephant in the room, but and even character design wise, there's a lot similar going on, but I really like there's a lot of actual stuff being done. It doesn't shirk away from controversial issues. One of the characters, this girl, I don't remember her name, the whole first volume, she comes from a very adamantly non-human magical creature rights family. She's always lived, her parents have always campaigned for rights for ogres and trolls and things, and whereas the rest of the Magic Society is you're a dumbass. They don't have the same kind of mental capability as us humans. Oh, ha, ha, ha. And rather than be shamed by all of her friends and being shamed out of her beliefs, and then also the trolls being no, but we actually like being slaves. It gets pretty into it, and how differing ideals and differing understandings, conflicting opinions, and also the choice and the chance to become educated and learn about things. It's done well. It doesn't shirk away from she cared so much, but that was stupid of her to care because they're just not worth it, right? But yeah, I've only read the first volume. There's a twist as well at the end, which I kind of I didn't see coming necessarily, but I knew there was a twist at the end, so maybe I did see it coming, which I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out in volume 2 and 3. There's a lot of violence. Like, I'm pretty sure some kids died in the first one. And the principal straight up said, like, most of you guys are gonna die, or at least withdraw. We don't care about you, and you're gonna get into some shit. You might be maimed, but if you survive, then you're gonna be fantastic. And also, half these kids, they're just ready to do evil stuff as well. They're like, have no qualms about just straight up taking out other students because there's only so many spots, or there's only so much you can do in a year, or what. Like, I don't even know, but I'm like, whoa, the stakes are high in this, because again, that other magic school that people normally think about, they're like, no, we are just a school. There's no danger here, and then there's always some dangerous shit happening. But like this, none of the teachers are pretending like everyone isn't trying to kill everyone all of the time. So if nothing else, that's pretty interesting. I look forward to reading these next couple volumes. I've heard nothing but good things over the course of my being aware of it. There's a manga adaptation as well, but you know me, there's not too many like light novels with manga that I'm care enough about the manga to get. I'd just rather read the novels. But yeah, check it out in whatever adaptation you want once it's available, because it is worth trying, especially if you do like that kind of Magic Academy setup. Next, we have the other light novel, the one that I didn't get from Yen Press. This is from J Novel. I haven't read any of this arc yet. I haven't read any of it because I just want to wait until I have all the books and then I can binge read them in like 2 days. I don't have time for that, but I'll binge read them over like a week and a half. But this is Ascendance of a Bookworm, I'll Do Anything to Become a Librarian, Part 3, Adopted Daughter of an Archduke, Volume 3, by Miyakazuki and Yoshina. This is, oh my gosh, got my girl on the front, sorry. This is a isekai story about our main character, I've seen it, translated a couple different ways. The novels are different not to the manga, but to the anime. And it's like, oh, okay. So I don't really know if it's a joke that her name's like main as in main character, or like if it's a joke this is mine. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, in pre-reincarnation, she was just like a bookish 20-odd-year-old. She just got her first job in a library. She loved books to the detriment of herself, really, because one day she got crushed by all her books, died, woke up in the body of a sickly 6-year-old, or 4-year-old or something. And 6-year-old, I think. And not only that, but she is in a world wherein books and literacy in general is not widespread. And as a impoverished poor person of the lower classes, she has no access to books. Because the nobles, the royalty and such, do, absolutely. And over the course of the series, she's been trying to encourage books. She's been trying to invent printing presses and books and writing and encouraging literacy. She joined the church for a while, and in the end of the last arc, she ended up being adopted by a noble. So that's presumably what this arc is all about. Man, oh man. I am 3 volumes behind, obviously, with this 3rd volume, but I love this series so much. It's really well done. Web novels or series that start as web novels and then make the jump to published novels can sometimes be a little bit wordy, a little bit repetitive or redundant. And I think that obviously comes down to the skill of the translator as well. I haven't ever really had an issue with it for any of J Novel's titles, but especially not this one, even though they are pretty thick books. Like, I know that it doesn't look very thick, but this is 300 something pages, 360 pages. Like, this is a lot of pages for an average light novel. Normally they're like 200, so if that, like 180. So, you know, there's a lot of content in there, and it's always really compelling. Touch of darkness. It's pretty bleak society that she's woken up in, and there's been a lot of really hard choices. This hasn't been an easy ride for our protagonist, which I think also lends itself to it being so exhilarating when you see her achieve things that she's been working for. I highly recommend this series. The anime is fine. Like, it's good. It's not, like, super beautiful. It's not a series with a huge amount of, like, you know, high octane action or something. So there's not a lot of, you know, super beautiful cuts of animation. But it, you know, it's serviceable for the story that it's telling. I always recommend the novel. But there's also a manga that I think is fairly well received as well. So, you know, take your pick. Again, it's one that I think you should definitely try, especially if you're not, like, necessarily a fan of isekai. It's very, very good. It's one of the few that I really do enjoy. And, yeah, check it out. Next, we have a very exciting new market opportunity, which many people, including myself, have been looking forward to. I will not call myself the expert on this. I'm very rarely an expert on anything, but certainly not this. I'm a fan of all of these titles that I'm about to talk about because I've enjoyed their adaptations, but I would never profess to have discovered these or to have been fans for them for a super long time or anything like that. I'm pretty in the camp of, like, having discovered them over the last year and a half and just enjoying them and being really excited once it kind of became obvious that this was a market to be catered to. So I know nothing about, like, specific titles. I know a couple that haven't, like, people are wanting. I know a couple creators that people are really hoping do find themselves in English at some point. But yeah, not the expert. Anyway, so the other thing that I got, not the final things that I got, but the next things that I got were 7 Seas releases of Mojang Tongshu's danmei, MXTX's 3 danmei series. The Scum Villain's Self-Saving System, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, and Heaven Official's Blessings. So, I will start with first. So, for those uninitiated, danmei is the Chinese word for... Basically, it's not really BL, but it's a male romance novel, a novel focusing on romance between men. All 3 of these started as web novels, published online by MXTX. And apologies for my atrocious pronunciation. I do try, but I'm not very good with languages anyway, but tonal languages like Mandarin, I'm working on it, right? Apologies in advance. But, so I've seen all the danmei, not the danmei. I haven't read all 3 of these yet. I've only read one of them, to be perfectly honest with you. And it's the last one I'm going to talk about. But I have watched the donghua, aka the animated adaptations of all 3 of these. So, first is first. The Scum Villain Self-Saving System. This was the first of her titles to be written. Probably the least popular of her titles. But this is an isekai about a guy in modern day who, after reading like the most wish-fulfilling crap super popular web novel, got so upset as like, and was like kind of rage tweeting. Wasn't on Twitter, I don't think, but he was just like venting like, this is so shit, why does anyone like this, it's just the worst, all of this wish fulfillment, the guy, like the hero of the story, he kills all the villains, he gets revenge for all his bad upbringing, he ends up with like a harem of 300 girls or something, like this is just crazy, this is so dumb, why do people like this? Anyway, so, and people are, you know, like with all outrage on the internet, people are commenting, it's like, well then why didn't you read the whole thing, you idiot? Because he read like all 1,000 chapters of the web novel. Anyway, he's getting all really upset, so much so that he accidentally chokes on his bow and dies. And ends up as the villain, the villainous mentor character of the main character of this novel. But not only that, there's a system within the novel that prevents him, like similarly to reincarnated as a slime, there's a system that tells him like, oh, you can't just start being nice to this kid, right? Because like, well, I'll just be nice to him, so then he won't want to kill me at the end of the book. And this is like, no. That's not in your character. You have to be in character. You can't just do crazy shit. This kid still has to become the hero, and therefore you still have to do stuff, right? He's not going to become the hero if you don't act in character. So this guy is trying to stay in character, but whilst also not being, and allowing this kid to like hit these milestones that he needs to become the hero, whilst also not like treating him so terribly and being just horrible enough that the hero would want to kill him at the end. It's similar to like any of these, you know, reincarnated as a villainess light novels. Same level of humor as well. And really, I feel the reason this one is the least popular of her 3 novel series is because, one is probably because it's the shortest at 4 printed volumes long, but also because the donghua, the animated adaptation, is CG, like 3D CG animation. With like that kind of hyper realistic, it looks like a Final Fantasy kind of, I'm not a video game person, I'm sorry, but it looks like a video game in the style of like a Final Fantasy. It's not, because obviously it's traditional Chinese, but you know what I mean, right? Just like that, beautiful faces, and it's also not like a huge amount of money put into it. It does look a little bit janky a lot of the time. Compared to the other 2 series, which have like 2D animation donghua adaptations. So I mean, that CG is always not popular with a lot of animation fans outside of like Pixar and Disney stuff, but it's really funny. Like I really enjoy this series a lot. I love all 3, but for 3 different reasons. This is a good time, and it's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the family, maybe, or the black sheep of the family, but it's still really good. If you've read her other 2 novels and you haven't given the series a try, you should probably give it a try. It's good. It's a fun time. Yeah. And yeah, first out of the way. Secondly, we have the much more popular, vastly more popular. This is the one that gets people into it. I guess it's got a live action and adaptation as well, which is on Netflix. This is Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, aka Modao Zushi, which is about Wei Wuxian, this guy, who, he becomes the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation over the course of his life, right? He was sort of an orphan. He was taken in by one of the great families of the area, so he was raised kind of like as an adopted child. So he was very close to two siblings that were. He was kind of like he was a student of their clan, but he was also kind of like a brother to the both of them, but also kind of like, you know, an advisor or a bodyguard for them as well. And all of these young cultivators are sent for training. They all end up at the Gusu area, like that the Lan clan looks over, wherein he is not he's not built for studying. He's a smart kid, but he wants to get up to shenanigans, and the Lan clan, nah, we've got all of the rules, and most notably one of the young prodigies of the Lan clan are this character, Lan Wangji. He just can't put up with this Wei Wuxian. He's just, oh my god, always causing trouble, always breaking the peace. But, you know, they study together, and there's a whole bunch of young cultivators who are trying to reach enlightenment. They're to, you know, maximize on their cultivation techniques. And over the course of having to fight a bunch of things, all of these characters grow closer. Notably, these two front characters grow very close. Anyway, war breaks out. In order to protect the people that he cares about, our main character, Wei Wuxian, and in order to stop war, and also in order because he's just curious and he discovers things, and he's always been good at pushing boundaries, to say the least. He starts on the path of demonic cultivation, which is kind of bad. It's definitely bad. It's considered like you don't do that. You're going down the wrong path if you're doing that. And people are terrified of him. And ultimately, you know, when he's in his late 20s, late 20s? Maybe early 20s. Anyway, at some point, he is killed. He's killed. Because, you know, they're like, oh, he's a menace. He's got all those, he can control ghouls and demons and all of this bad stuff. That is just not allowed. It's abhorrent. It's just terrible. So, I'm the worst at explaining these things, but bear with me. So, anyway, smash cut to, I think it was 11 years, 16 years? Many years later, young guy, young illegitimate child, who's wanting revenge on his family, who's like, or his clan, who's never treated him right. He sacrifices himself in order to summon the spirit, the soul of Wei Wuxian to take over his body to get revenge. Anyway, so Wei Wuxian's back, baby. But now he's in the nubile young body of a 20-year-old young man, whilst everyone else is like 16 years older, at least 16 years older. So things have changed. But you know what hasn't changed? The love that these two have for each other. Oh my god, both taken with each other, but they're also so bad at communicating. So, oh my god, it's such a mess. Just talk to each other. They never do, but and Wei Wuxian's just so chaotic. So chaotic. Anyway, but so he ends up like, well, people kind of like suspect that this is Wei Wuxian again. They're like, oh, this is that guy. He's playing that song. Well, one person's like, hey, he's playing our song. That song about that we wrote about with each other, that about our love. That might be the one. He ends up back in Gusu, so back with the Lan family rather than being executed on sight. Because it's like, oh, well, no, I'm just this guy. I'm not the person you're looking for. Obviously, look, I am a young 20-year-old boy. But everyone knows, like, this is not fooling many people. They all seen these hijinks before. But he goes back and he sees the sun. Oh, so good. Anyway, yeah, so, it's really good. I don't want to, like, talk too much to it because, as you can tell, I'm super good at explaining these things. But like the donghua, the animated adaptation, very, very good. Recommend it. It's on YouTube for like legally for free with English subtitles. It's as is Scumvillain, just by the way. First season. Only the first 2 seasons of Modao Zushi are on YouTube. Third season's on WeTV still, so I don't know when they will make the transition. But it will be there at some point. And yeah, this is the one that people got into because it has a live action adaptation with The Untamed, which, as I said, is on Netflix. It's super easy. There's a million characters though. There's like, if you're not, people have kind of like maybe made a joke of the fact that there's like a glossary of terms and locations and not a very good pronunciation guide, so I'm not even gonna try with that one, but it's like all of the characters, all of their different, like their birth name and courtesy name, because there's, similarly to how there's suffixes in Japanese, like someone calling someone chan versus san versus domos versus like whatever, is there, they have that in Chinese too. But if you're not familiar with that, then it is quite valuable, and this is how we learn. This is how, we encourage people to learn things. And if you look at old light novels, notably that Holic light novel, so many footnotes. I'm kind of happy that they didn't make these footnotes and made it a glossary instead. But yeah, regardless, very well done. I think Seven Seas has put a lot of really good, a lot of effort into these, and you can see how much love and care from the community, from the translators, from the artists as well who are involved with these, because several of the covers are new artwork. It was a labor of love, and I think that sentiment comes across. Anyway, this is the one that you've probably heard of. It's very popular. Check it out if you haven't. But you might need to rewatch the show / reread it like 4 times to actually figure out what the hell is going on. Who's talking about who at what point. But finally is the other one that people are probably most aware of. The donghua of this actually is available on Funimation. It's getting dubbed. It has a Japanese dub already. Ooh. I have an interesting misprint in this. Look. Something obviously fell in the ink. Someone's handprint. Also was still wet. Anyway. So, this is the third and final and longest. I think this is again, I'm not the expert. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is ongoing. It's 8 volumes, 8 published volumes. So, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is completed in 5 printed books. Heaven Official's Blessing, which is this next one I'm talking about, I think is... I don't know if it's completed. I don't know. But it's got 8 published volumes in print. So, well, in the print edition. So this is Heaven Official's Blessings. Or Heaven Official's Blessing. This is also the only one of these I've read so far. It won the poll. But I do love it. I love all of them. I love all of them, so it was really like I did the polls just because I couldn't choose. But this is also the one that I think has the most devoted fan base. Not the largest, but the most devoted. So this is about a guy, a god, who was a prince in his mortal life, but reached ascension. He was taken into heaven by the heavenly emperor 800 years ago, and, you know, was there for a little while, but got too caught up in, you know, earthly issues, because his dream was to always help people, right? Like, which is not exactly a super godly thing to do. They try to stay out of it. He kind of got involved, and then his kingdom where he was from fell. There was a war, and then a plague, and all sorts of things. So, problems happened. He was kicked out of heaven, which is not a good look, right? And normally when you get kicked out of heaven, you either turn into like a ghost, a ghoulie, or you just kind of struggle on Earth until, well, forever, right? There's not so many great options, but on the rare occasion, you could come and ascend again, right? You can become brought up back to heaven, and that's what he does. He ends up in heaven again, but he was so furious. He was pissed off. He was gonna smash some shit. He was only there for a very short time. Less than an incense stick. I don't know how long that is, but it's not long. So he was there for, like, at most maybe an hour, and then they kicked him out. They're like, that's wild. You took this opportunity, and I gotta respect that, but, like, also, what did you achieve? Memorability. That's what he achieved. Anyway, so the beginning of the book starts with his 3rd ascension. He's back, baby. But he has no, like, real heavenly powers or anything, and he has no cred. He doesn't have any shrines or anything to himself, because after he was kicked out of heaven, people saw him as, like, a god of misfortune. People stopped, you know, praying to him and giving offerings. So he doesn't have anyone who cares about him. It's really like he is not doing well. Anyway, so he sends it rocks heaven. It literally shakes the bell out of the bell tower. Someone's castle smashes to the ground. There's just been a whole lot of stuff, because when you ascend, the more powerful your powers, I guess your inner chi, the stronger impression. And I guess he just has a lot of that stored up. Anyone who made it to heaven 3 times, despite literally wrecking their shit the last time you were there, probably does have, like, pretty strong. Anyway, so he's in heaven. He's, like, actually trying not to cause trouble. He's just trying to do the best he can, but he gets sent to the northernmost part of the country to help solve an issue. There's a ghost groom who's been stealing brides, so we gotta fix that. And in order to catch said ghoulie, he dresses up as a bride. This is what the thing is. The cover is. He dresses up as a bride. He uses himself as bait. Um, and but rather than this monster, this ghost groom that he's expecting, someone else comes pick him up, and he doesn't know who this person is. All he knows is silver butterflies, and the sound of bells or chains, and a soft, like a hand and an umbrella protecting him from the rain, and he steps on the thing and it gets rid of the array, so all of the magic is dispelled and all sorts of things. Anyway, so this is the story of a fallen god. Well, I guess a fallen slash reascended slash fallen slash reascended god. Just doing his best, trying to make his mark and help people like he's always wanted to. Whilst also building recognition for himself. He's trying to make sure people actually know who he is, so he can maybe have a shrine or two. That'd be pretty good. But him meeting Hwacheng, he's kind of the most important ghost king around. All the other heaven officials, they are freaked out. He is super strong. They don't know much about he's an intimidating guy. He came in, beat up the last guy, and was like, "Hello, I am the ruler now." He is super duper strong, and our main character, having not been, in touch with what was going on in heaven for a super long time, he's out of the loop. So he's just like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, so it's a love story between these two. It's called Ghost King and a heaven official, but maybe they have closer ties and a longer history together than than our main character is aware of. Matt, he is 800 years old. He's such a little baby. I don't know. He's honestly, Hwacheng needed 800 years to because he wasn't gonna get it in a human lifetime. That's not. Oh my god. It's it's good. This is like the peak of man, maybe love is real. I wish this is what you read when your expectations for a relationship are too high. This is what ruins your expectations for relationships. It's very, very good. I'm joking, but also not joking at the same time. This is really wonderful. I really like how it's framed. Again, if you've seen the animated adaptation, the donghua, the first season is basically the entirety of this book. It is the entirety of this book. It even ends on the same spot. But yeah, it's I'm super bad at describing things in a way that would make people want to read it, but it's a good time. They're all good, and honestly, if you're gonna commit to one, just commit to all three. Heaven Official's Blessing is probably it's hard to recommend which one would be easiest to get into. I mean, Moro Azushi, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, is probably the easiest to recommend because there are a bunch of different adaptations. It's not super duper long. It also is a similar tone to this one. But they're all good. They're all worth your time reading if you're into this sort of thing. Or if you're interested in learning about this sort of novel and this market, this newly emerging market. It's very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this has set, the expectation it's set for publishing and more historically manga publishing and light novel publishing within the market, because obviously this isn't Japanese, and I understand people's upset when people compare it to a light novel, or that manga fans or anime fans are into it. because it is a distinctly Chinese thing, and they shouldn't be like all grouped together. But also at the same time, like, you can understand why they're marketed to very similar groups within the wider market if you're not already aware of things. And I'm getting to controversial stuff, but like, I don't think it's inherently wrong to think that people who are already into light novels or already into like Asian history would be interested in this sort of thing versus like just putting it out there and being like, oh yeah, here's a new book. But you know, the market's spoken for itself. This has been incredibly successful for Seven Seas because of the already inherent danmei audience that there is, from across, well, obviously across China and those people with Chinese backgrounds in, you know, in countries outside of China, but and then again then other fans who've discovered it through various adaptations. But when you are a publisher that is regularly dealing with anime and manga fans, it makes sense to me that that's what you're familiar with, so that's what you are comparing, that's what a lot of your existing market is, or existing buyers, customer base is already. It's just you're entering a new market, so you're opening up your customer base. Yeah, regardless, we've seen a lot of danmei getting licensed from like small print publishers, which is really interesting and cool. With this, I can only imagine that especially Yen Press will, along with Seven Seas, maybe J Novel as well, will start publishing more of this and licensing more of this, because it is something that sells very well and has a lot of people wanting. So yeah, Seven Seas definitely hit a home run with these. Finally we have a non-Asian comic or novel. This is I guess, I don't know if it's completed. The fifth book will be the last one. But this is the fourth. This is the hardcover edition of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. A sweet story about a gay couple in the UK who are, you know, they met in school. Well, they're high school boys. And, you know, the ups and downs of their relationship. And man, oh man, there's a lot, like, the downs are really down. This is Alice Oseman, if you're not familiar, is a pretty well-established YA novelist. She started with her novel Solitaire, which actually features Charlie, his older sister Tori. She's the main character of that. And all of her novels, whether it's Radio Silence, Solitaire, what is the other one called? I mean, there's a lot. There's quite a few of her novels and short story collections, and they all exist within this same universe. All of them feature characters from within kind of the same community, within the same group. Aled, who's one of the characters in Radio Silence, is Charlie and Nick's friend from school, and it's a couple years down the line from this story. Obviously, Tori, Solitaire and Tori's story is happening kind of concurrently with this particular volume of the book. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember. What is it called? I have to look it up. I'm sorry. Loveless. Oh my god. It took me far too long to remember that. Loveless is, again, set within this universe, and they all feature queer stories about mental health, stories about teens going through it, pretty much. It's really lovely, wonderful. I love her writing style. I don't read a lot of YA necessarily, but I mean, if we're disregarding light novels, but like, I don't read a lot of YA, and I certainly don't own a lot of YA, but I do own Osman's novels because I think they can sometimes be clumsy, especially Solitaire is clumsy at points. But the way that it discusses issues like mental health, eating disorders, sexuality, gender, all of these, and also like race and ethnicity in certain societies, and how you express yourself. And as a teen, that's kind of your period of figuring shit out. Teen and older, to be honest. Your teenage years and 20s and 30s, 40s, your whole life is you trying to work shit out. But I think there's quite a lot of care that Osman puts into her series, and Heartstopper is very sweet. As I said, there's some pretty low downs. This does, have topics of self-harm and eating disorders and just general mental health, and then also bullying and all sorts of things. So it's, being a kid can be fucking hard. And I appreciate that Osman never shies away from that, and also has a lot of hope for, in this book particular, about, support is great and love is great, but you can't love someone healthy. You can't be, like, one person can't be everything to the person that they care about. You need the support of your family and friends and siblings and community and teachers and doctors and whatever else it is you need. You need to find your support in more than one person, because that's only ever going to cause, undue stress on that that person, because they care about you and they want the best for you. But it's so good. It's really good. As I said, volume 5 is the last one. This is a web comic as well. She publishes it online, so it might be done for all I know. I don't keep up with it online, but I will be happy and sad to see this end once it does. Check it out. It's very, very good. Anyway, that's everything. All the books that I got for this month. It's actually not all the books that I got for this month, but I got some books that I really hated and returned immediately, so I'm not going to talk about those ones. But overall, it's been a really solid month. Very full month. So much stuff. Maybe I was expecting it. There was some unexpected things, but a bunch of my pre-orders came in because I guess they wanted to get them out before 2021 was fully completed. Lots of stuff I was really looking forward to, notably all of the danmei. A bunch of fantastic continuing series. No debuts. Well, I mean, aside from some BL, but no real, major general manga debuts. But that is definitely not going to continue to be the case over 2022, because there's already so much stuff that I'm looking forward to. Looking forward to starting, looking forward to completing. There's a bunch of stuff going to be ending in the next couple months. What an exciting time. But yeah, I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of the year, although it is the 31st of December as of recording this, so kick 2021 to the curb. That was shit. And life's been very hard the last several years, to be perfectly honest, but especially this last 2 years. So I hope everyone is looking after themselves. Do the best you can for yourself whilst you can. Stay safe, stay healthy, be responsible. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye till then.